Nick, I want to kick it off with you. I'm going to start big and broad. Are we a more secure world, or are we less secure, or TBD? I never give you easy questions, do I? Figure it out.
Well, listen, I mean, if you look at the pure metrics of the Iran war and the Strait of Hormuz, you would have to argue that we are not. Of course, President Trump would argue differently, but you had a sort of status quo prior to the U.S. attacks on Iran, where oil was flowing freely through the strait, and now it's not. And this has been really one of the problems that has bedeviled the president. Of course, his administration continues to claim that it's Iran that wants a deal, that he's in no rush. But there are some suggestions that really indicate he's growing weary of this. You also have the strain that I'm sure Mark will be able to talk about as well on the U.S. troops and the U.S. assets that are in the region. And there's a lot of broad concern from U.S. allies in Asia. You mentioned South Korea. If President Trump is now going to try to exert leverage over a country like South Korea over Iran, well, what does that mean for the U.S. commitment to South Korea in a region where China is still looking to make its own moves? So a lot of uneasiness from U.S. allies. Spin it back to the Western Hemisphere, though. You have Nicolas Maduro, who's been removed. The president argues that's a win. But, a lot of instability, a lot of concerns. So, but certainly looking at Hormuz, I would say we are not as secure as we were before February.
Mark, Nick, as he always does, laying it all so well. Come on in on it. I am curious, too. We've talked a lot about the USS Abraham Lincoln. We've heard from the president saying the deployment not nearly long enough. There's a lot of things that we could hit on. But take it away from your vantage point in terms of global national security, U.S. national security.
Well, one of the problems is, how do you define U.S. interests? Now, I agree with what we've just heard, that there have been some very concerning events, Strait of Hormuz being right up there. The Trump administration, they're much more skeptical about defending Europe. They are skeptical about even the Western Pacific, and believe that countries there should do more, that the United States has been taken advantage of. So from the perspective of many in the administration, we're better off, because if the Europeans are threatened by Russia, that's not our problem. We will be able to keep more of our forces and resources at home. Now, the concern is that we've tried that strategy twice in the past. It failed both times. There's no need to try it a third time. But many of the administration they're focused on America first. And one of the problems that I think they're realizing is that even if you have a strategy that says America first, we're going to focus on the hemisphere and the homeland, we still get dragged into these foreign events like the Middle East, like Europe, like the Western Pacific. So if we're a global superpower, we need to maintain those global capabilities. And right now we're seeing that the Navy is stretched, and our munitions inventories are much lower than the war planners would like.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, what you're really moving towards, in my estimation here, is this ongoing discussion of the U.S. weapons stockpile. I've talked about this with Nick plenty of times, but it seems like right now the administration is a bit sensitive to this discussion. And I'm just curious what you think, in telling our viewers who maybe aren't paying as much attention to the weapons aspect. Is it a dire situation? Is it a troubling situation? Where do you benchmark this at?
I would put it at troubling. But you have to keep in mind that munitions covers a lot of territory. And there are some munitions where we have good stockpiles. For example, we're rebuilding stockpiles for ground munitions, and there are some short-range ground attack munitions that we have pretty good stockpiles on. But there are other areas where we are short. The one place where we're really desperately short is defenses against ballistic missiles. And these are systems like Patriot, which many people have heard of, THAAD, and the Navy's SM-3. We've used about half of those, Patriot a little more, SM-3 a little less, and there are no good alternatives.
Is it like a level that keeps you up at night?
That would keep me up at night. Now, we have alternatives, some of the other
Right.
munitions, and there are some things that have come out of the war that I think do help deterrence against China. But this is an area where we are short. It's going to take a long time to rebuild those, and there are no good substitutes.
So Nick, come on in on here. You cover national security from so many different angles, but let's go to our military stockpile and what you're hearing, because the administration, and I guess I understand it on some level, gets very defensive, no pun intended, when it comes to any criticism about the size of military stockpiles. What do we know for real? And I do understand we have to keep some of this quiet because it is a security issue.
Right. I mean, it's very interesting because having covered U.S. wars going back to Iraq in the early 2000s, I mean, as a reporter, I was used to constant, daily, incessant briefings from the administration, certainly putting their spin on the state of U.S. forces, number of casualties, territory, stockpiles, things like that. And while a lot of this was considered a secret, you could get some estimation of where things stood. And this administration has taken a much different approach. It's much more difficult even to get assessment of damage on U.S. bases in the region that have been hit by Iranian attacks. So there is so much that we don't know. What we can say, though, is that some of our reporting does suggest that the administration is making decisions partly because of concerns around stockpiles. So when you had the president essentially promising to unleash a massive new military campaign against Iran a couple of weeks ago, and then the reporting suggested that U.S. allies in the region were telling him, listen, we do not think this is the best path forward. We did have some indication at that time that concerns around strikes on U.S. allies in the region, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, for example, that the U.S. understood it would not be able to defend them as well as it would want to because of concerns around its ability to knock down all of those incoming strikes from Iran. So it's a very complicated picture. There's a lot at play. There's a lot we don't know, but we can at least say that the evidence we're getting from the reporting does suggest that concerns around those stockpiles are starting to influence the way the administration does make decisions in the region about what it'll do next.
And Nick, when you say not be able to defend our allies in the region as much as we'd want to, can you unpack that for listeners who maybe don't really understand the day-to-day of what you might be talking about?
Well, I mean, it's like what Mark said. I mean, if there's a ballistic missile that comes in, I mean, that's a very powerful weapon. And if it can't be defended against because there's a shortage of Patriot missiles or they're being much more selective about their targeting, those sort of targeting decisions are going to be influenced based on your stockpiles. I mean, the U.S. is starting to get into other forms of defense. They're not effective against ballistic missiles, but against incoming drones. So they do have more counter-drone defenses, and there are indications that they're ramping up production of those Patriot missiles. Of course, those take months or years to produce, but they are bringing in cheaper anti-drone defenses. They're working on directed energy weapons. There's all sorts of stuff they're trying to bring to the region to defend against Iranian attacks. But the Iranian attacks are so varied, and the time lag between when you expend those munitions and then can resupply them, if it's a cheap drone, okay, that's one thing. But if it's a PAC-3, Patriot interceptor, those take years to produce and they cost, millions of dollars. So there's a much longer time horizon to get those into the battlefield to be able to defend the U.S. forces.
Yep, can't flip a switch quickly on that one. Hey, Mark, I want to go back to you for a moment. One of the things I keep thinking about with any of this is that I do feel like the cards are largely in the hands of the Iranians. And we did have President Trump come out on social this morning. The number one goal is and always will be that Iran cannot have in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon. So we're back to that as the mission, which is what we all thought that mission was in the beginning, but it's kind of gotten tossed around here. From the Iranian perspective, this is existential for them. So what do we need to understand about where they are coming from and how long they're willing to keep this going? Again, going to what some say will be a forever war between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, I think that's right. For the Iranian regime, this is an existential threat, that the Israelis and the United States have threatened to overthrow the regime. Now, the focus is back on nuclear weapons, but regime change would certainly, was certainly discussed early on. And the regime is willing to endure great hardship. They're willing to inflict great hardship on the population in order to stay in power. You have to keep in mind, too, that there's a religious element here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that there's a regime that wants to retain power, as all regimes do. They believe that God has entrusted them with certain responsibilities, and they need to carry those out. Both sides have cards. The Iranians, of course, are blockading the Strait. The U.S. is blockading the Strait also and preventing Iranian oil from going out and materials coming in. We are in what I call an economic war of attrition to see who can endure longer, who can force the other side to make concessions.
Mark, I want to flip the switch to the comments the president had made over the weekend about the U.S. South Korea drills, wanting to reduce those, citing a lack of help on Iran. From your perch, when you hear something like that, I mean, what kind of goes off in your mind?
From a military perspective, this is a bad thing. Now, it's not an immediate problem the way that reduction in forces might be, for example. But these exercises, and the big one is coming up. It's called Olshi Freedom Guardian. It's been going on for literally 50 years. And one year when I was in the Marine Corps, I participated. But this is a mechanism to get the U.S. forces and South Korean forces working together to mesh the two military systems, to make sure our plans are consistent, to make sure that all of our communications is consistent, that we can fight together as a team effectively. And there's also on the South Korean side a mobilization aspect to the operation. Now, you cancel it 1 year and you lose some experience, but there's still a lot of experience in the force. But over time, as you cancel that, you cancel the smaller exercises, that expertise declines, your credibility with the North declines, your military capabilities to conduct combined operations of conflict with the United States and South Korea, that declines. And it's not clear to me what we're getting for it. The North Koreans haven't offered anything. So I'm not sure, what's in it for us. But I'll defer to the political side to answer that question.
All right, Nick, come on back in here. In that social post, too, President Trump said South Korea had declined to join us in the denuclearization of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It did catch Seoul, though, by surprise. This is just another thing. Or how are you and the folks you talk to kind of assessing this latest move, which many say caught Seoul by surprise?
Right. I think it probably caught a lot of Trump's most senior advisors by surprise as well. I mean, there is some precedent for this. When the administration in Trump's first term was in negotiations with North Korea, the president scaled back U.S. military exercises with South Korea. It also got in a big imbroglio with South Korea over the amount the U.S. wanted South Korea to pay for U.S. troops hosted on its soil. So there was a lot of conversations. It was seen as sort of leverage the administration was trying to use to renegotiate those basing agreements to get what President Trump believed was a better deal. So when I see that, a lot goes through my mind. Okay, maybe it's Iran, maybe it's the basing agreements, though they have some more time to go there. Maybe we'll also get back into some sort of conversation with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. The white whale of President Trump's first term, an agreement with North Korea. Maybe he's going to make another run at it. So it's always difficult to divine on a Sunday evening where these pronouncements come from, though it does have some historical precedent for President Trump, though I do agree with Mark there on the question of, what does the U.S. get out of this? What help does President Trump actually want from South Korea in helping with Iran? Maybe it's maritime patrols for the Strait of Hormuz. But it's hard to see how South Korea could actually help with denuclearization of Iran. Maybe it's just diplomatic support. So there, again, a lot we don't know here, and we'll really have to see how much he actually scales back those drills when it comes down to it.
Just another issue, right, that we have to pull into kind of the geopolitical conversations.